Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is my review of the Glock 19X. Oh boy, the 19X. Seems like every year, right around SHOT Show time, Glock unveils something new, which is pretty common for firearms companies. Either you're going to get a new generation, or you're going to get a new size, perhaps a new caliber. The Army recently sought a new handgun, and the 19X is a modified version of their submission to that handgun program. While they did not get selected, they did decide to release this to the general public, and I'm glad they did. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the past almost 6 months, the 19X is a full-size Glock 17 size frame with a 19-ish length slide. Seems a little bit counterintuitive for some. There were a lot of people that initially said Glock did it wrong. They should have built it the other way, meaning a 17 length slide and a 19 length grip. But you're in luck. You don't actually have to wait for Glock to release that. If you own a hacksaw and have a steady hand, you can buy a 17 and do that yourself. Whereas people who wanted the reverse, a reverse stretch if you will, a 17 size grip and a 19 length slide, there's just no way that we were able to do that in our home, in our own home workbench. So we had to wait for Glock to do it, and they finally did. The 19X was not arguably intended to be a conceal carry gun. However, it does lend itself very well to that, and I'll get to that. It was designed to be a military sidearm. If you see some of the other NATO-centric handguns out there, FN immediately comes to mind. Their handguns are generally in this kind of configuration. A full-size frame with a compact-ish length slide, because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have a full-size combat grip, if you want to use that terminology, a duty grip, while you have the ability, if necessary, depending on your operational level, to go concealed with the gun, whereas it's going to lend itself very well to duty carry without needing to add any additional length or change anything out. And that's kind of the overriding idea behind the 19X. Of course, you can rejoice because the gun still conceals very, very well, arguably just as well as a full-size 17. Now, I carry a full-size handgun, be it 17. Currently, I'm carrying an M&P, and because I carry in the appendix, it's much easier for me to conceal a full-size handgun. My concealment issue has never been grip, it's always been length. The longer the gun, the more uncomfortable it can be, depending on what I'm wearing, what I'm doing, how long I'm sitting, how long I'm standing, things of that nature. All these little concerns that change from day to day depending on what you're doing. So having the ability to have that full-size grip that I like with a shorter slide length gives me the ability to carry appendix much easier than what I'm going to get from a full-size gun without having to change holsters or worry so much about the particular pants that I wear. And it's kind of a minor issue, but another great thing about the 19X is the 19 is a very popular platform to compensate. Well, now you can get a full-size grip, a 19 length slide, and you can throw your compensator of choice on the end of it, and now you're not dealing with a 19 comp, you have a 17 size grip compensated, which if you're into full-size grips, that's definitely going to be beneficial over what you're going to get from just a standard 19. Talking specifically about features, for the first time in Glock history, you now have ambidextrous controls, ambidextrous slide release anyway, or slide stop, depending on who you ask. You also have this cool little lanyard plug, which is really good for officers the world over, since this was intended to be an Army submission duty handgun or sidearm. You have the ability to attach a lanyard, which is something officers seem to need because they go to the PX or whatever version of the PX they have, and they buy the cheapest holster they can get. Thigh holster, they wear it just above the knee. They put their pistol in it, and eventually they're just going to lose it. And with a lanyard, it's going to kind of bounce around behind them like a stray dog, which is great considering the alternative is a bunch of privates doing hands across America looking for the officer's issued sidearm. So if you want a lanyard plug because you're into that kind of thing, you have it. If you don't want it, it is, thank God, removable, because I have absolutely no use for it whatsoever. 19X currently only comes in this particular color, which is a flat dark earthish color. The slide is in PVD coating, which during my 2,000 round review process I found very, very awesome. It's very abrasive resistant. It handles oils well. It does tend to collect some of the, as you can see just on this, the carbon that you're going to get from shooting, but I'm not really interested in my gun being pretty so long as it functions smoothly. And this particular coating is a huge improvement over coatings Glock has used in the past, especially for their non-black offerings that they've done before. It comes standard with metal sights, night sights, which is something you generally don't see standard from a Glock handgun. I'm a huge fan of that. And then you get into one of two of my favorite features, the trigger. A Glock stock trigger quoted at 5.8 pounds of pull that is clean, crisp, and consistent. Reset is what it is. The reset is there. You don't have to fish for it. It's going to be roughly right around the same place after you're coming back from the wall every single time, which I did appreciate greatly. It's definitely an improvement over Glock's stock triggers that you've seen in previous generations, even the newer Gen 5, going back to Gen 4, Gen 3, which are some of the other guns that I shoot. I definitely like this. This is probably my favorite trigger in any handgun that Glock's ever offered that wasn't some kind of custom shop or the competition style that you'd see on the Glock 34. My next favorite feature is Glock's Marksman barrel. It has a recessed target crown, or recessed barrel crown, which I really appreciate. If you're worried about your gun taking hard impacts, especially if it's going to be for duty or you do a lot of high impact kind of training, the barrel is going to protect itself much better because you don't have to worry about an impact causing a burr on the actual port exit of the rifling the barrel itself. You've got a little extra layer of protection based on that barrel recess. As far as accuracy goes, this is the most accurate OEM Glock barrel I've ever fired. Just showing you right now, 124 grain LAX, just regular range ammo at 25 yards supported. Of course, now we're going to talk reliability, right? Glocks have generally been known for reliability. They're arguably the most popular duty and carry handgun on the market, and that position has been relatively well deserved over the past couple decades. But just because they've done it in the past doesn't mean they're still doing it. Quality control can be a thing. So with the 19X being somewhat of a new handgun versus just a generation of an existing platform, it was interesting to see if Glock was going to be able to pull it off. Well, if you're familiar with my review process, I'm going to do that 500 round burn down. 500 rounds as fast as I can. And this is a shooting 124 grain LAX as well as a mix of 124 plus P and 147 plus P. The burn down went flawlessly, other than the fact that my hands began to cramp because working a pistol trigger 500 times as quickly as possible is drastically different than working a rifle trigger 500 times as fast as possible. But the gun ran like a sewing machine. It got really hot. That's going to be a thing, you know, bullets cause heat, so on and so forth. But I didn't have any issues during the burn down process. Now, throughout the review process itself, I haven't done a great deal to take care of the Glock 19X. I haven't abused it, but I haven't taken any extra measures to protect it from elements, from the environment that it was in. I've been traveling with this gun as I've been teaching my class. I had it out in Utah in freezing conditions in the snow, and I had it out in Arizona during, well, Phoenix's summer, which seems to only end for 3 or 4 weeks out of the year. So various sandy conditions, and well, of course, being here in Georgia, it's going to come into repeated contact with Georgia's clay, which, given the environments that I've been in, desert sand and Georgia clay seem to be the best at fouling up guns that would otherwise run. My final verdict on the Glock 19X is, even if you're initially apprehensive about it, you really need to give it a chance. At least shoot it and see if it can change your mind. Now, not everybody's going to be able to carry this thing concealed. people come in all shapes and sizes. They may not be willing to carry appendix, or maybe they carry strong side hip or some other variation thereof. So this gun might not necessarily conceal for you based on your frame or body size. But if you're currently carrying a 19 appendix, you could probably get away with a 19X. Gives you a little bit more ammunition, a little bit more runway on your initial purchase on the grip, the master grip from the draw stroke, if you will. And it gives you some other advantages that you're not going to get from your standard Gen 5 Glock 19, or probably realistically your Gen 4 or Gen 3 that you're still carrying, because not all of us run out and buy the latest generation of Glock just because it comes out. Because Glocks are so reliable, you got to wear one out usually before you run out and buy an exact replica that's just another generation, if the changes aren't significant enough for you to actually need to purchase that gun. Out of the box, the 19X is ready to carry. I don't think it needs any considerable changes. Recoil, springs, trigger, sights, everything is great. Comes with 3 magazines, standard capacity 17, and then 2+2s. As far as price goes, it is a little bit more expensive than what you might be used to spending for a 19/17 OEM whatever generation, but it's definitely worth it with the added features that you're going to get. So I'm a huge fan of the 19X. In fact, I would probably go straight to carrying it if it had a dot on it. I'm all about that dot life. I'm going to use it to teach classes, defensive handgun focus classes, but until I can get a dot on it, it's not going to be something I can carry. And that's one thing that I'd like to see Glock do, although I hope they don't murder this thing and release it as an MOS, because the MOS needs to go back to the drawing board before it's a reliable platform overall for carry condition. So if you want to know my opinion on the Glock 19X, well, you've seen it. I like it a lot. I think it's a very good handgun, and I think it's well suited for the market, where the market is, but more importantly, I think it fills a gap that some people definitely needed a handgun to fill from Glock. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.